west till they bury me. I'm one west till they bury me. I'm one west till they bury me. I be one west to the death till they bury me. One west till they bury me. I'm one west till they bury me. I'm one west till they bury me. I be one west till the death till they bury me. I be one west till the death till they bury me. They ain't scaring me. Rip the soul out. Speaking heresy, get you fucked up apparently. It's like they daring me. I said chill, they ain't hearing me. They ain't listening. Every bar nitroglycerin. Hit your heart, bring it back to stop, make you live again. Getting dividends, so we start getting ignorant. I be on that soldier shit, I told you shit phenomenal. Now but they abdominal, so when you so chronically rhyming comical, this is funny until I'm bombing you. Bring apocalypse to the pussy niggas that's popping shit. Team of all-stars, I coach them up like a Popovich. Fuck the politics and the lobbyists and the apologists. They vagina, so we go check them like gynecologists. It's kinda obvious how the situation is ominous. The way your rhyming is and regurgitate for the audience. It's all applauding this because the competition is fraudulent. From the era when niggas smoking look like a parliament. The flow been stupid. Shit's got her retarded sense on the dominance. One west rising the prominent. Cause I be one west to the depth till they bury me. I'm one west till they bury me. I be one west to the depth till they bury me. I'm one west till they bury me. I be one west to the depth till they bury me. I'm one west till they bury me. I be one west to the depth till they bury me. I'm one west till they bury me. One nigga quiet, my maneuvers, but I ride like I got group eyes for Uber. Rhymes hard like they've been viewed by Medusa. 9 milli Lucas, 17 in the root. Only need a few to sit up in your medulla. Out of dollar, for the regatta niggas while they win every dollar. They riding by black Apollo, let the semi holler. The showstopper, then the promise is the titty bopper. But now I'm going off control and premium vodka. I put extensions on the Glock, modify the chopper. The sword heavy, war ready, and that's for the mama. Don't ever run and say I got the loudest silence on it. When I'm a bowling, ain't no rapper do it like I blew it. A lot of spitties and writings, but when the heat so none of them can get to the spot around with me. And I had a nigga spin like a tire, and I'm still going with the piper. Every bar burn hard like a spoon with a lighter. Ignite up and then coming through with the sound because you I be one west to the depth till they bury me. I'm one west till they bury me. I be one west to the depth till they bury me. I'm one west till they bury me. I be one west to the depth till they bury me. I'm one west till they bury me. I be one west to the depth till they bury me. I'm one west till they bury me. West till they bury me. I'm one west till they bury me. I'm one west till they bury me. I be one west to the death till they bury me. One west till they bury me. I'm one west till they bury me. I'm one west till they bury me. I be one west to the death till they bury me. I be one west to the death till they bury me. They ain't scaring me. Rip the soul out of Pharisee. Speaking heresy, get you fucked up apparently. It's like they daring me. I said chill, they ain't hearing me. They ain't listening. Every bar nitroglycerin. Hit your heart, bring it back to start, make you live again. Getting dividends, so we start getting ignorant. I be on that soldier shit, I told you shit phenomenal. Now but they abdominal, so when you so chronically rhyming comical, this is funny until I'm bombing you. Bring apocalypse to the pussy niggas that's popping shit. Team of all-stars, I coach them up like a Popovich. Fuck the politics and the lobbyists and the apologists. They vagina, so we go check them like gynecologists. It's kinda obvious how the situation is ominous. The way your rhyming is and regurgitate for the audience. It's all applauding this because the competition is fraudulent. From the era when niggas smoking look like a parliament. The flow been stupid. Shit's got her retarded sense on the dominance. One west rising the prominent. Cause I be one west to the depth till they bury me. I'm one west till they bury me. I be one west to the depth till they bury me. I'm one west till they bury me. I be one west to the depth till they bury me. I'm one west till they bury me. I be one west to the depth till they bury me. I'm one west till they bury me. One nigga quiet, use my maneuvers, but I ride like I got group eyes for Uber. Rhymes hard like they've been viewed by Medusa. 9 milli Lucas, 17 in the root. Only need a few to sit up in your medulla. Out of dollar, for the regatta niggas while they win every dollar. They riding by black Apollo, let the semi holler. The showstopper, then the promise is the titty bopper. But now I'm going off control and premium vodka. I put extensions on the Glock, modify the chopper. The sword heavy, war ready, and that's for the mama. Don't ever run and say I got the loudest silence on it. When I'm a bowling, ain't no rapper do it like I do it. A lot of spitties and writings, but when the heat so none of them can get to the spot around with me. And I had a nigga spin like a tire, And I'm still going to hyper. Every bar for a heart like a spoon with a lighter. Tonight I'm really coming through with this house because I be one west to the death till they bury me. I'm one west till they bury me. I be one west to the death till they bury me. I'm one west till they bury me. I be one west to the death till they bury me. I'm one west till they bury me. I be one west to the death till they bury me. I'm one west till they bury me.
Shalom, Israel. We are the I.S.U.P.K out of 1 West 125th Street, New York, under commanding General Yahanna. I am Priest and Officer Isupk out of the Trinidad camp, and tonight is our Lashawan Qadash, or we call the Holy Tongue, right? I just have to say Lashawan Qadash. Qadash means holy. Lashawan is tongue. Qadash means holy or separate, right? So we are a separate people, we are a holy people. All right, tonight is our Lashawan Qadash, as I said. We have classes basically every single day of the week where you get different aspects of understanding the scriptures as it applies to Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. So on the other days during the week, which is from Sunday nights, this is for actually the local camp. Sunday nights we have scripture breakdown with Officer Galawan. He's our camp leader. That is on Sunday nights. On Monday nights we have history, which is with Officer Makako Bar, where we break down the history in context to the scriptures and also the history in context of how it applies to our community, our country, around the world, biblically to Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. On Tuesdays, we have the Brotherhood class, where we go into the scriptures and see how the law applies in the aspect of brotherhood, right? How we deal with each other, how we organize with each other. That is done by Officer Sawapia Allah. That is on Tuesday nights. On Wednesday nights, we have the law class done by Officer Matkwaya, right? Officer Matkwaya, he does the breakdown of the law, whether it be the dietary law, whether it be the civil law, whether it be law dealing with clean and unclean, whether all aspects of the law is taught on that aspect on the Wednesday night by Officer Matkwaya. On Thursday, we don't have any local class, but we tune into the online classes with the generals, right? Hosted by commanding Selake by General Hyman. That's the Thursday scripture breakdown class. And immediately after the scripture breakdown class on Thursday, we have Cross the Line Radio with Officer Selake with Captain Katiza and Captain Tazaria. That is done on Thursday night at around 10 p.m. On Fridays, we have the Lashawan Qadash, which is done by myself, Officer Yakad, on Friday nights. And on Saturday, we have the Sabbath service, which is also done at 10 a.m., right? Also done by myself as well as other priests who you may see from time to time. Now, all these classes are also done by other zones, other schools all over the country, all over the world, right? Whether it be in Europe, UK, North America, South America, in the Caribbean islands. We have schools all over the globe, in Canada, in Alaska, all over. So tune in to ISUPK.com, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and all the social media events. Also, we have on Monday nights, we have scripture breakdown with General Mahaiman as well. That is done on Monday nights at 7 p.m. As well as after scripture breakdown on Monday nights, we have Black Watch with Commanding General Yahanna, who is the leader of the nation of Israel today, the leader of Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, all right, in the nation today, right? He does the Black Watch, which is really Black CNN, right, for Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, where you get all the news, all the information, everything that's happening, no matter what is going on, it will be broken down. You will see all the plots, the plans, and all the devices and our so-called oppressors use against us. That has been broken down on Monday night by Commanding General Yahanna. On Wednesday nights as well, he has another podcast as well as on Saturday nights as well. So those 3 times where you get all the information, all what's happening around the world, around the globe, and it's being broken at that time. So again, like, share, and subscribe to all these social media handles, and with that you'll be able to get all the information. If you need to contact the school, go on I.S.U.P.K Trinidad and Tobago, and you'll get the contact for our camp leader, Officer Lashawan. He will be able to give you all the information that you need in relation to the local school, or any other question that you have in regarding to I.S.U.P.K Trinidad and Tobago and I.S.U.P.K worldwide. Right, so tonight, as we see, we're going back to our heritage, customs, and culture. Here we have our Lashawan Qadash, our holy tongue, and we have also some called characters, right? This is the Hebrew characters, which primarily makes up the so-called alphabet, right? And if you look at these characters, you will see they very much resemble a lot of the so-called English characters. The reason being because while they use this as the backdrop to form those languages, right? So if you look at this, is what we call the ancient Hebrew. Some would call it Paleo Hebrew, right? And so some would want to call it Aramaic, but it's not Aramaic because Hebrew is not derived from Aram, right? Aramaic is comes from a person who was once alive, from a man called Aram, right? But the Hebrew is the original tongue. From the Tower of Babel, when all the languages were confused or confounded or changed at that point in time, Hebrew was the first original language. And all the others were transcended from that, broke off from that. And those languages, break off into all the other languages, whether it be Egypt, Kemet, whether it be Asiatic type languages, whatever language you have now, you would see the remnants of those coming from the Lashawan Qadash. Right, so this is the alphabet. These are the characters, right? They're called characters, not letters, because each one symbolizes and means something, right? Where you have like a pictograph, right? This is where each one of them means a particular thing, right? A or the alap, this would represent like an ox, right? Then you have the A, then the Ba, Ga, Da, Ha, Wa, Za, Ka, Ta, Ya, Ka, La, Ma, Na, Sa, I, Pa, Ta, Za, Kwa, Ra, Sha, and Ta. Right? So all these characters are used in the Hebrew or ancient alphabet of ancient dialect, right, which is the original language of the so-called Black, so-called Hispanic, so-called Native Indian, right? I say Black specifically because we are not Africans, right? Black is a color. We are Hebrews, but because of description aspect, we use the term black, but we're not really black. We are brown, shades of many different brown, right? Some darker than some, right? But we are not Africans. Africans and Negroes are two distinct race of people, two different. We look similar skin tones, but we are ethnically two different people, all right? So the big difference with that is that they are Shemites and then they are Hamites. Shemites and Hamites look very similar, right? Even Japhites. But as we know, the earth or the world has a different mix of so-called shades of brown. All are very similar. The Japhetic people, who are like the Samoans and the Hawaiians, they have a same kind of brown color, very similar to us. Same thing with the Africans. They have very similar skin tones, right? It's only the so-called Caucasian man who has a distinct color separate from who? From all the others, right? And in the scriptures, will show you how and where the so-called white man came from and his color, right? So, the progenitors of the so-called white man or so-called I.S.U.P. in the Bible right? That is the progenitor of the so-called white race, Esau, right? As you know the story, Esau and Jacob were two brothers, right? One came out red and hairy all over like a garment, a red garment. So we know he was different from his brother, who was Jacob. A so-called white man, not white, is actually more red or pink because why? He has no melanin in his skin. And because he has no melanin in his skin shows up so-called white, right? Has no color. Just like what we call a so-called albino. A black man can be so-called look white because why? He has no melanin, he's a so-called albino. So he would look very similar to a so-called white man. So he has those similar properties where he has no melanin in his skin. So his blood is seen just below his skin. Most times you would call them what? Redneck. Because why you would see that blood rushing under the skin. Whether they get upset or they get a lash on the skin, etc. But tonight, as per usual, what we do, we just run back through the alphabet just to get the basics for those who are looking at it for the first time. We'll go through it one more time. This is the Hebrew or ancient Hebrew alphabet. There's the ancient Hebrew and there's the Assyrian, right? The Assyrian came later down during through the captivities or the Assyrian captivity, where the characters are a bit different, but the pronunciation is the same. All right, so what I'll do, I'll probably do the Assyrian alphabet another time and come so you'll be able to compare the two. So you'll be able to see and understand what it is between the Assyrian and the ancient Hebrew that is taking place. So I'm going to take this down, and tonight we're going to dive in to a passage of scripture where we will get some context of some of the animals that are in the Bible. To be a little more specific, some of the clean and the unclean animals in the scripture. Clean meaning the animals that we can eat lawfully according to the scriptures, and then unclean being those that are unlawful to eat. Right? So the pork, crab, lobster, and shrimp as some examples of unclean animals that we can't eat. We are, as Israelites, as blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, we cannot eat that because why? It is unlawful, right? For us to eat that because why? The Most High gave us instructions not to eat those things. Everybody else could do it in the aspect of they were not given the law not to eat it because all the other nations are what? Lawless people. They do what they want. They eat bat, rat, cat, snake, everything else under the sun. But we are by law, through the Most High, we are not supposed to eat any of those kind of animals. There are specific animals that are clean, specific animals that are unclean, and we are not supposed to partake of those things. Right? So we're going to go into Leviticus 11, which gives us a breakdown of these clean and unclean animals, and we'll get to see the names of these clean and unclean animals as they are written in the scriptures. So you get to understand and get some of the biblical context and the biblical names of some of these animals of them in the Hebrew. Right? So it'd be good to know because that is part of our culture and part of our history. So, Papagosha, could you, Professor Barria, just pull Leviticus 11 and 1 so we can start from there?
The book of Leviticus 11 and verse 1. And spake unto Moses and unto Aaron, saying unto them.
Right, so the Most High spoke unto Moses and Aaron. So what I will do, I'm starting in Leviticus 11, just to get an understanding and a context right? We study breakdown from Leviticus 1, Salaki 11, and 1. So the whole aspect of learning our Lashawan Qadash is for us to be able to get back that understanding and to get back that heritage that we lost. The Chinese have their language. The East Indians have their language. The so-called Caucasian man has his language. French, Spanish, Dutch, English, all those things, those are their languages. But the so-called black man does not have his language. And when I say black, I do not mean African. I mean the so-called Jews who were sold as slaves from Africa. The native Africans sold so-called black, so-called Negroes from Africa, the west coast of Africa, and sold us to our enemies, right? Both of them were our enemies. So our enemies captured us, which is so-called Africans, and sold us to the so-called white man, and then we came across here, right? In the so-called west, on these plantations. But also, before the so-called white man brought the so-called slaves, so-called black slaves from Africa, he also what? Captured black slaves, right, who were the so-called native Indians who were here in the so-called Western Hemisphere. The so-called Caribs and Arawaks, the so-called Puerto Ricans, they are also Israelites. They are also black men. You understand? So the transatlantic slave trade started before that so-called African trade, where they took us from the Caribbean here, so-called native Indians, so-called Caribs and Arawaks, and shipped them to where? To Europe. You understand? So that slavery started from since that time, from since the 1400s, with our brothers who were here, who were already here, right? In North America, in South America, in the Caribbean. So what I'm going to do, we're going to write the first statement, right? Which is in Leviticus 1 and 1, right? So that's 1 and 1, which says, and the Lord said, and the Lord spoke actually. I'm writing down here. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, right? So this is the English of what is written here, but now we're going to write it in the Hebrew. So, and the Lord spake. Now Hebrew is a very direct language. More so, a good example of it would be like how the so-called Apaches used to speak. So if you remember seeing some of those old Western, where you have the Apache speaking, and they say, "You come, the man, woman, come here now." It was a very straight and direct language, because why? They have their roots in the Hebrew. So in English it says, "And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying," right? How it is written in the Hebrew, right? It is written as Wayadaba, Wa, Ya, Da, Wayadaba, which really is, all right, not fully. So it's Wayadaba, Yahweh, Like your brother have any history about that? Right, so while the bar Yahweh, right, which means and spake, right, while the bar al, yeah, what? Mashah, and we'll bring them each one piece by piece, where the bar, Allah, Mashah, wa Allah, right, so where the bar al, so like here, I can see it, I don't know, just, right, wa Allah, right, Aram, right, wa Allah, Aran, la Ama, Abraham. Right, what this is really saying here, but because could you read over Leviticus 11 and 1?
Okay.
Babukasha,
Book of Leviticus 11 and verse 1. And the Lord spake unto Moses and unto Aaron, saying unto them.
right. So it says, and the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron, right?
Yeah.
Moses and Aaron saying
Saying unto them.
unto them. Right, so as I told you before, Hebrew is a very direct language. So this is the translation here in English, which is Leviticus 11 and 1. Just to give you a little context. So now, the direct translation from the Hebrew to the English, the direct translation of the Hebrew here is wa yadaba. Now the ba, right, means to speak. So wa yadaba, right, is and. So it's and the speak. Right, but in this case, we have spake. Right, so given in context of who is really speaking. So in context, this really saying and spake. like and speak. Right? So it's saying and speak or and spake Yahweh, which is the Most High, which is the Lord's name, Yahweh. Right? And spake Yahweh, Allah is unto. So, and spake unto Moshe is Moses, and spake unto Moses, and wa in the Hebrew is and unto. So wa Allah is and unto Aharon, which is Aaron. That's Aaron's name in the Hebrew. And spake Yahweh, which is the Lord, unto Moses and unto Aaron, saying, La'amah is the same. Saying unto them. So you know Allah is unto. Them. So the literal translation says, and spake Yahweh, which is the Lord's name. Some people say Jehovah and Yahweh and Yahudah. That all is BS, real BS. This is the pronunciation, this is the actual name of the Most High. It has no J, it has no J in the Hebrew alphabet. Zero. That J comes from what the English translation. And because they do not understand, they put that J, so they call it Jehovah or Jehovah, whatever they want to call it, which is still incorrect. In the short, the name is Yah. And because of the English, they say Jah. So the Rastafaris and them say Jah. Jah this and Jah that and Jah. Which is really comes from the word Yah, which is the shortened version of the Most High's name. And the reason why it has a shortened version is because the Most High's name is what is sacred. That's not supposed to be done, not to be said any way willy-nilly. That is why throughout the scripture you see the Most High, you would see the Lord, you would see the power. You understand? So all these are different names that you would have for the Most High without speaking his name in vain or using his name in vain. Where you're using it, for some arbitrary reason or in context of where you're coming against the Most High power name. Right? So we have and spake Yahweh. So we're using this in the context of teaching so that we will understand his name. And spake Yahweh unto Moses and unto Aaron or Iran, saying unto them. So this is Leviticus 1:1, right? In the Hebrew, say that in the Hebrew, you will get to understand the context and the fluency of how we spoke in ancient times. So I will say, Wayadaba, Yahweh, Allah Mashah, Wa Allah, Aram, La Amma, Alaham. That is how we would speak in our ancient tongue. You understand? This is for blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians that we understand and come back to our culture. Because there's a sense of freedom and liberation in understanding who you are. That is why all these other nations are so-called free. Because they have their culture, they have their language, they have their history intact. But the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, We don't have no history. And what everybody else would say, forget that. That was what? Ancient history. That was a long time. Slavery, don't worry about slavery that is in the past. You understand? Everybody wants you to forget your history, but they do not forget their history. You understand? They want you to forget the slavery that they put you in, but they do not forget whatever captivity, whatever small issues that they had throughout their generations. Because no one ever suffered more throughout history and time like the nation of Israel. You understand? From in Egypt, come right up now to this present slavery. Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians have had the most horrendous slaveries throughout history. You understand? And to understand more so because why? Because we went against our Most High power. We went against the laws and the commandments of the Most High. Some of which we're going to explain tonight in 11, which really goes through the dietary law, right? So what we're going to do tonight is just continue and show some more to the aspect of the dietary law, what we are supposed to eat, what we're not supposed to eat. We may not be able to go through everything tonight, but as we go through and we start it tonight, you'll have an idea of what are the clean animals we are supposed to eat and what are the unclean animals we are not supposed to eat. And we'll get to understand the Hebrew. So I'm going to give you a second if you want to take down this, right? If not, you can always go back, roll back the tape, roll back the video, and then you will take down this first part, which is Leviticus 1:1 in the ancient Hebrew and in the English, which says, Wayadabah, Yahweh, Allah, Mashah, Wa'ala, Aram, La'amah, Al Yahweh, Salahi Alaham, right? Which is ancient Hebrew for blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to take this off, and we're going to move on to the next verse, where we get to see. So back here, see if we can just in this way. That's all. In addition to the ball. Let's deal with me one. I think all right, so Babu Kashaf Sabar, can you read the second verse?
Book of Leviticus 11 and verse 2. Speak unto the children of speak unto the children of Israel,
Right.
saying, These are the beasts which ye shall eat among all the beasts that are on the earth.
Right. So it says, speak unto the nation of Israel again. Right. And that's verse 2. And that in Hebrew is the bawa, Allah, Banya, Yasher Allah, the Amar, right? The Athar, Hakaya, Asha, the Akal, the Akalwa, Makal, Habaham, Asha, I, Arataza. Right? So it's saying, I want to just read verse 2 in Hebrew, which says, speak unto the children of Israel. So speak, which is the ba, as you had earlier on, right? And it says the ba wa, right? Which means speak unto, right? The ba is to speak and a given context. So it says speak unto, right? Allah. So and speak unto Banya, which is children, right? Banya, speak unto the children of Israel, saying, these are the beasts. So we're going to get into the beast. So the word for beast in the ancient Hebrew, let's put it up there. Right, good to have this, which is the Blue Letter Bible. This is where you're going to get the context of a lot of the Hebrew words. Right, they have it written in the Assyrian, but again, it's the same translation from the ancient Hebrew into the Assyrian Hebrew and into the English. Right, so Leviticus 11. And 1. Right now we're in 11 and 2. Right, so it says, speak unto the children of Israel, saying, these are the beasts. So kaya, right, so beast is kaya. Right, it's kaya in the ancient Hebrew. That is beast. Right, you see when the serpent was the most subtle beast in the field, right, that is in Genesis. Now, in that context, the beast that we're talking about was what? The different nations that were on the face of the earth, right? At that time, right? The most subtle beast, right? Was the most deceptive man on the planet at that time that came onto Eve, that spirit, right? So the same way you would call somebody who stitched on your rat, it's the same context of that being used then at that time, right? So the word kaya is beast in the ancient Hebrew. Okay, let's see this here. Now, I have two aspects actually. I have kaya, which is the first part, which is synonymous to living. Right, so this here, in the context, is in the context of kaya, which is living. So the living beasts or animals, which is kaya, which is life or living. So kaya, if you might be able to see it, it means living or life. So as it's read, it says hakaya. This is here written in the Hebrew. So the living, so it said of these, actually I'm going to write it in Hebrew. So I have beast, I'm going to write the word for beast. The word for beast is Behemoth. All right, it's Behemoth. Behemoth, right? That is the word for beast. Right, so that is the word for beast, which is Baha, Ma, right? So that is beast. Well, how they have it in the translation, right, is these living which shall eat, right, among the beasts which, right, which are on earth. That's the actual translation. That is the direct translation. So the word beast is Bahamah in the ancient Hebrew. Just here, so I hope you're able to see it. Right? It says beast in terms of cattle or animal. Right, so verse 2 says, speak unto the children of Israel, saying, these are the beasts which ye shall eat. Right? I want to eat is kaya. Or no, a cow. So to eat is a cow. Let me put in the connectors. Right, so this is, so beast is Bahama, to eat is a cow. So you say these are the beasts which ye shall eat. Among all the beasts that are on the earth. Right, so all the beasts that are on the earth, and the word earth, right, is a ratazah, Ara to Za. Right, so this is earth in the ancient Hebrew. This is Aratazah. In the ancient Hebrew. That is earth. So as you go through Leviticus 11, we will go through all the key words or the key aspects of what is happening in Leviticus 11, which really explains the dietary law that we're supposed to have. Now, this is Moses speaking unto the children of Israel, not speaking to the Chinese, Japanese, Africans, Egyptians, so-called Caucasian man, not speaking to anybody else but the nation of Israel at this time. So this law was only given to the nation of Israel. So that was verse 2. So Baba Kushak, I'm going to verse 3.
Book of Leviticus 11 and verse 3. Whatsoever parteth the hoof and is cloven footed.
And is what?
Cloven footed.
And is cloven footed. So whatsoever parted the hoof and is cloven footed. So if we get an idea of what parted the hoof means, right? So you have animals such as horses, oxes, cow, deer, those what parted the hoof. So if I could probably draw something, maybe something like that. And that could be like, the foot. So there's a split in the hoof. You understand? That means parted the hoof. So any animal that has a part in the hoof, right, or is what we call or cloven footed. Continue.
And cheweth the cud.
And what?
Cheweth the cud.
And chew the cud. So there is a prerequisite for this animal that we can eat, which is part in the hoof and chew the cud. For those who don't understand, chew the cud is something that is very special with certain types of animals, right? So I don't know, Officer Barrett, I don't know if you know in terms of chewing the cud what that means.
Some animals have a second stomach.
And
it is regurgitate back up the what they swallow down and chew back out.
Right. Yeah, so like primarily, some of them not just have a second stomach, but some of them have four. Actually have four stomachs. Like goat, cow, sheep, those we call rudiments. They have the ability to, they will eat, they'll go down in one stomach, they can bring it back up from that first stomach, chew it again, grind it up more fine, and then that will go down into the second stomach. And then it will go to a third stomach, then a fourth, then they would pass it out at the end as done. Right? Because the grass is very hard to digest. So it has to go through different phases. So the first phase they would eat stuff up, so they would look bulky. Then they would bring it back up, chew it again. So sometimes you see a goat or a sheep or a horse, they would sit down and they just sit down in the shade and they just chew it. Chewing. That is what they already do. Right? So in Leviticus chapter 3 it says, right, so whatsoever parted the hoof and is cloven footed. Now hoof, right, in the Hebrew is porah, right, or pasah actually. So hoof, get this off. So for Sa, right? So for a Sa, right, as Puf, is Pa, Ra, Sa. So Pa, Ra, Sa, that is Puf in the ancient Hebrew, right? So they must have a hoof that is what? Cloven footed, right? So the word cloven or cloven footed is Shasa, right? So Sha'aita or Sha'ai, which means cleft or cleft or split, meaning the same thing, right? So cloven so it's Shasa'ai is Shasa'ai, which means cloven, right? It means cleft, cloven, or split. So again, it would be like how this is here. That's how if you look how a pig foot, horse, goat, sheep, all they're basically the same thing like this. There's a split between those two and have almost like they have two big toe, right? Camels have the very similar hoof. So I'll give you a minute to take these down and then we'll be able to move on to the other verse where we can get more insight. Right, so take this down. Right. And move on to the other aspect. Nice. So, that was verse 3, right? So continue with verse 3. Right, so we know animal must have a hoof, must be cloven-footed or cloven-footed, whatsoever part of the hoof, split between the hoof, and is cloven-footed, and what cheweth the cud. So, what is, let me explain what is chewing the cud, right? And the word cud, I'll put was cheweth. So cheweth, which means to eat, right? To cheweth means to go up, to ascend, to climb, and just as what these animals do, they bring back up. You know, they bring back up that grass from the stomach and chew it, or they re-chew it. You understand? So they eat it initially, and then they chew it, they bring it back up, and they eat it again. Right? So the word chew it in Hebrew is Ilaha, so which is I, La. Right? So it's Ilah. That is cheweth in the ancient Hebrew, and what they chew the cud. The cud is what they actually bring up. Right? So the word cud in the ancient Hebrew is garah, right? Garah. So garah is cud in the ancient Hebrew. Right? The definition, the strong definition is garah, right? Which means the cud, they say, as scraping the throat. Right? So that is the actual definition of the word cud in the ancient Hebrew, which is garah in the ancient Hebrew. So we have whatsoever part of the hoof and is cloven-footed and cheweth the cud among the beasts, right? So among all these beasts that have these characteristics, that ye shall eat. So beasts that chew the cud and is cloven-footed are sheep, goat, deer. Any other examples? Sorry.
Sheep, goats, deer, cow.
Right, cow or ox. What about horse?
Horse to have the cloven foot.
And horse actually does have the cloven foot, but it don't have the stomach. The horse don't chew the cud like how those others just do. Understand? We can't eat the horse, right? Those type of stomach that you have. Right, so that is verse 3. So now we go on to verse 4. But I said, nevertheless, these ye shall not eat. Them that chew the cud, right? Or of them that divided the hoof. So Salakia, so actually the horse actually does chew the cud, right? So specifically, verse 4 says, nevertheless, these Ye shall not eat of them that chew the cud, or of them that divide the hoof, as the camel, right? Right? Because, so I'm going to get back this here. Right, because he cheweth the cud, but divided not the hoof, he is unclean. Right? Right? And I said here, so the kuni, verse 5, because he chewed the cud, but divided not the hoof. Right? So chew the cud, you bring back up the food, you could eat it, that is it. Right? If I'm not mistaken, the horse chew the cud, but is not cloven footed. Right? So he was correct. Right? So that is why the horse would be unclean. Right? Because if you hold the horseshoe, I think yeah, it'd be like this. You understand? Like a half a moon that the horse does not divide it, doesn't divide the hoof. So he was correct. So the hoof of the horse is not cloven, is not split, is not cleft, but he chewed the cud. So in that aspect, he is still unclean. Very similar to how the camel is. But the camel is also chew the cud. Right? So it said, nevertheless, these ye shall not eat of them that chew the cud, which is like the camel and the horse, right? Or of them that divided the hoof, as the camel, because he chewed the cud, but divided not the hoof, he is unclean. And the kuni, which he chewed the cud, but divided not the hoof, he is unclean. Right? So we talk about one, the camel. So camel in the ancient Hebrew is gamal. If I'm not mistaken. So camel, right, is gamal. Again, still something very familiar to the original Hebrew, right? Which is ga, ma, and la. Gamal, kamal, or camel. And that's how you see any variation of from the English to the Hebrew, right? But this is the ancient Hebrew word for camel is gamal, right? So that is camel. And you also have the other animal there that would be unclean as well is what? The right? The kuni or the kuni, right? As verse 5. Verse 5 says, and the kuni, because he chewed the cud, but divided not the hoof. Right? So kuni, right, in the Hebrew word for kuni is shapa. Shapa na. So sha, shapan. So it is translated in the ancient. Right, so it's shapan. Right? So sha, pa, and na. Shapan, which is koni in the ancient Hebrew. Right? So, and as Shapan, kaya, And the kaya means because. So it reads, verse 5 in the Hebrew is wa'ata hashapan kaya. So, and as like koni, because ma'ayla, right? Ma'ayla gara, because what? It truly could, but it does not what? Divide the whole. And the word divide is paras. So let me get that word in. So divide right? So it's pa, ra, and sa, paras, right? So paras, it means divide in the ancient Hebrew, right? It means to divide, to break in two. When that is like to break into two pieces in contact, right? To break in two, right? To break up, or to divide as in the off. So again, I'll give you a minute to take those down. Again, like, share, and subscribe to all our social media outlets. I.S.U.P.K.com, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, to get all the I.S.U.P.K events and materials. Also, sidebar, we have the 52nd annual Passover, which is on April the 24th, right, in Houston, Texas, right, at 14149 Clear Street, right, Houston, Texas. We'll get the full address at the end of the class, but definitely it would be the best. You understand? This is where the Lord, give us the ability to celebrate the victory, right? Which is the death of our enemies, right? Which is the Egyptians, so-called Egyptians, so-called Hamites, right? Africans, right? The Passover is the celebration of the death and destruction of our enemies and the deliverance of the nation of Israel from the hands of the so-called Africans who had us in slavery at that time, right? So we are not Africans. The reason why the Passover is there is because we celebrate the destruction of those who oppressed us, and those were those filthy Africans who kept us in slavery at that time, under those pharaohs. Right, so that was Leviticus, right, chapter 11 and verse 5, and we'll go on to some more. Verse 6, but Kusha, if you read it from Officer Barry.
Leviticus 11 and verse 6.
Mm-hmm.
And here, because he cheweth the cord, but divideth not the hook, he is unclean unto you.
Right, and the hair. Now, what is a hair? Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
A rabbit.
That's right. It's one of the kind, or one of the breeds, right? We come from the same family, right? A rabbit, very similar. They come under what we call rodents. You understand? So a rat is a rodent, and they are the same family. So if you're eating rabbit, you're eating the family of a rat. You understand? A lot of people just miss that, right? Now rabbits are very lawful to have as pets. You can have a rabbit, mind it, have it as a pet. Your kids could play with them as normal, right? But you cannot eat it, or you cannot touch the carcass of it when it's dead. Because why? It will make you unclean because of the amount of diseases and stuff like these things could carry. When they die, you are not supposed to touch it with your bare hands. You understand? You can take a shovel, pick it up, throw it away, and you can take a plastic bag, pour over it, but you cannot touch it physically with your direct hands because why? It will be unclean. It will make you unclean. Right? So that is the hair. Continue. Verse 7. Mm-hmm.
And the swine.
And the what?
And the swine.
And the swine. That's a very famous one. Babkasha. I will continue this.
Though he divide the hoof and the cloven footed, yet he cheweth not the cud. He is unclean to you.
Right, so we have these two animals here, which is the hare, right? We'll take these off. Now, they don't have the word rabbit in the scriptures, but they have it as hair. Because not hair as in your hair on your head, but H-A-R-E, which is hair, right? And the word for hair is Arabeth, Aranabath, right? That is a hare or a rabbit. So I'm going to put into the context. So a hare, right, slash rabbit. Right, the biblical name they use for it in scripture is hare, and the Hebrew is R, Rana, Bath. Which is really just daughter of or family of. So, right, so Ra, Na, Ba, and Ta. Ra, Na, Ba. Right, so we have the hare, and then we have the swine. Now, the famous name for the swine, who was in biblical times, is known as a pig in English, or you say in this modern day context. So the swine or pig, right, in the ancient Hebrew is Kazayara, right? Kazayara. So Ka, Za, Ya, Kazayar. Kazayar. So somebody call you a Kazayar, you're a pig or swine. You understand? Kazayar. You see them over there is Kazayar. Right? Those are pigs or swine. So Ka, Za, Ya, Ra. Kazaya. So I say use a Kazaya is a swine or pig. And this is our habit, our language. Because 99 out of 100, when you go into these Asian groceries or restaurants, Chinese groceries and restaurants, and they talk in their language, and they talk in all manner of insults to us in their language, we don't know. You understand? They're calling us all manner of stuff. I'm pretty sure because you see the expressions on their face. You see when they talk, someone they laugh. But what? They have their heritage, they have their language, and they understand their culture. And with that note, they are able to what? Rise. And they get above us, high, and we below. And that's what the scriptures talk about. Our people will come and they will put themselves, what? The strangers will make themselves what? Above, high above. And we will be beneath. When we were the head, they were the tail. Now what? We are the tail. And they will come up as the head. And that is where we are now as a people. But now as we get back to our history and our culture and our language as blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, we have our language. So we will call it a Kazaya. And you might never have a clue what it is. But we know and we understand because we are the chosen children of the Most High God. Right? So, and it's the swine, right, or pig in the ancient Hebrew. All right, so we go down much more. Right, we say, of their flesh ye shall not eat. Right, and their carcass is what? Unclean unto you. So, flesh in the ancient Hebrew is basar. Right, bashar. Bashar right? Bashar in the ancient Hebrew is flesh, right? So that's flesh as in your meat, right? That what makes you, that what makes your body as the flesh. But the carcass, your carcass is also, right? Is also a part of your body. But in this case, the carcass is in context as when the animal dies. The dead body is what we call a carcass. Right? So carcass or corpse in the ancient Hebrew is pronounced Nabala. Right? Nabala. Nabala, which is carcass in the ancient Hebrew. So na, ba, la, ha. Connectors, Nabala. That is carcass in the ancient Hebrew. Right? So we'll take a few minutes, take these down, Like, share, and subscribe again to all our social media outlets, right? Tune into I.S.U.P.K.com, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, right? Join Commanding General Yohanna tomorrow. Look out for Black Watch, get all information. I mean, also we gotta look out and pray for our brothers in St. Vincent. All right, for those who don't know, St. Vincent is one of those small islands in the Caribbean chain, right? One of the Benjamin Islands where our brothers are, right? For the past couple of days, the volcano, there's an active volcano right now in the island of St. Vincent. Probably about 50 to 80% of the island has been evacuated, right? And had two major eruptions today in St. Vincent. All right, so that island itself is, you know, in a devastating position at this point in time. So we send our prayers for the island of St. Vincent and for all the Benjamites, all the Israelites who are there in St. Vincent at this time. All right, and with that, I pass the class to Priest and Officer Barrier.
Security announcements. We are the I.S.U.P.K. out of 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under Commanding General Yohanna. New rules for brothers and sisters. When a new brother or sister comes into the school, they are off limit for 6 months. They are to be saluted only. They are here to shed themselves of the world. After 6 months, if a brother or a sister has an interest in a particular person, he or she must get permission from the head to speak to a brother or sister. There's another 6 months in which a brother or sister will court each other. After this 6 months period, the brother or sister will get permission from the head to marry. Tithes, which is a commandment, you can find Numbers 18 to 21 and Malachi 3, 8 to 10, means tenth in Hebrew and is pronounced Ma'ashara. 10% of every penny of any increase the Lord gives you, you give to the treasury department or teacher. Priest fund, free will offering for priests, not mandatory. Whatsoever amount you would like to give. Upcoming Holy Convocation, the Lord's Passover. The 14th day of the first month, and be April the 24th, and you could get this in Exodus 12, 1 to 51, and Leviticus 23, 4 to 5. Also 1 Corinthians 5, 7 and 8, and 2 Chronicles 30 and 17. Remind Akim and Akwathiam to check on social media such as ISUPK.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and so on for I.S.U.P.K. events and materials. If your brother wants to be a trooper in the school, then he is to start wearing all black, which includes black boots, light shirts, light pants, light headband or scarf. And with that we say I imagine. Let's give the teacher one courtesy salute. I imagine Shabbat. I imagine Barak. Yahweh Ba'asham Yahushai Brakata.
Yahweh Ba'asham Shabbat.
Yajumata. Let's give the sisters online one courtesy salute. I imagine Shabbat. I imagine Barak. Yahweh Shemaratam Ba'asham Yahushai. Yajumata. Class dismissed.